Well, the 2022 governorship election in Ekiti State holds on Saturday, and the usual anxiety about election days come to the fore: insecurity, thuggery, and vote buying. Well, ahead of the exercise, stakeholders have been warned against vote buying and related anti-democratic practices that militate against our march to smooth democracy. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for once, has vowed to collaborate with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, and security agencies to tackle vote buying and other election-related vices. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Johnson Kokuma, has also said that the police is ready for any untoward situation. Well, we wish the electors in Ekiti State a happy time, but first let's look at all the issues around what could result in a smooth electoral process. Well, Judy, the day is just 24 hours away from now. Ekiti State will provide a great test for what we're going to do in 2023. But of course, the issue of vote buying is becoming an ugly phenomenon that's now holding back our electoral process. How did we get here?
Yeah, honestly, it will be dishonest to say it's only recently that politicians began to buy people's votes. But what is opposite, what is clearly the truth is that in recent times, politicians have taken the irresponsible behavior of inducing voters with money to giddy heights. In the 80s and the late 70s, yes, politicians would try to induce voters with money back then, but it was not very rampant. The pain that I feel has to do with the fact that it now looks inconceivable for us to do an election without politicians sharing money, without politicians sharing bills of cotton to women, without politicians even sharing foodstuff to people. You see, even Gary, sachets of Gary will be given to people. Sometimes, right on the queue on election day, brazenly, politicians and their agents and even security operatives will be giving people money to vote for particular candidates. I saw a video from somewhere in the Northeast where a politician gave money to a police officer, and that officer was sharing the money to people on the queue. Of course, the way our election cubicles are designed, you could use giraffe method to determine who somebody voted for. So what those thugs do, what those agents do, is to not just give you money, but monitor who you voted for. They are not just going to waste their money. They will monitor who you voted for, because it's designed so it's not so high. The cubicle is not high enough, so they can sometimes see if they made up their minds to find out.
Follow.
Yes, they can sometimes see who you voted for. So it has literally come to stay. It has become part of the political culture here for people, for politicians to buy people's conscience on election day. And what started as the Bofunwako Sebe in Ondo State has now become a national phenomenon. And to the mortal shame of our country, this thing is getting worse. My main concern is not just that is happening, but it's getting worse. We have almost even legalized it. Because if we have not legalized it, by now, people should be scared of giving money to people on election day to vote for them. But how many people have we made examples of? And once you don't make examples of people who trample on our laws, things will get worse. That's what we are saying.
Okay.
The easiest thing to predict is that the election tomorrow is going to be heavily monetized. Politicians, as part of the preparation for elections in our country, now devote far more money now to buying votes. They even start early. In the US and the UK, you have what they call the get out the vote. The get out the vote helps them tremendously to win elections because they have volunteers who will be going from house to house to get people out to vote. Because some people are lazy, they register for election, but on election day, maybe it's too cold, they feel weary, they feel weak. But the get out the vote volunteers help them, to
encourage them
to go and exercise their franchise. But in our country, they now enter people's houses for the purpose of slipping money into their hands, not simply to encourage them to slip money into their hands.
Okay. BKO will still come back to how all this is playing out, but let me come to Adekunle Yusuf now. It all started like what a politician called stomach infrastructure. During the campaign then, sharing rice, bags of food and all that. And at that point in time, nobody was seeing it as a big deal. But now it has become a brazen act of circumventing the electoral laws, where even on election day, you are being canvassed through monetary inducement to vote for a particular candidate or political party. All this, over the years, where have we embraced this sad reality, and how have we encouraged this over the years?
Stomach infrastructure, just as you said. But the man who propounded
this theory
of stomach infrastructure came into office through that avenue, 2023, and we all saw it. He saw the needs of the people. They needed water. He brought in tanks, sharing water, free, kerosene, before you know it. But that was a phenomenon that was not new to us. But it wasn't at a magnitude that is extremely corrosive to our collective aspiration. Now, I don't think there is any gain we have made in our electoral process. What we've recorded are, I don't want to say intractable problems. Because when it comes to vote buying, people think it's just on the election day, you go to the polling booth, you induce people, you give them this and that. No. From reports we've seen in Ekiti, even weeks before the election, people go door to door, house to house, campaign. And people use that avenue to buy votes ahead. That now we have become so smart, negatively smart, to the extent of buying votes ahead of the day. Then our electoral process, the real soul of any democracy is that system that produces candidates. You call it primaries. No primaries is done in Nigeria without
bags of cash.
So now in Nigeria, the game is the game of highest bidders. Whoever emerges is the one, whether a drug baron, trafficker, public treasury, thieves, whatever all kinds of shady characters with deep pockets and ability to deploy same to capture the minds of the people. So, believe me, with this, Nigerians will have to choose only two options. Do we want democracy? If we want democracy, we need to go the whole hog. Make somebody we want our candidate and our leader. Or do it based on votes. I'm sorry, on the halo of, we can't say only Naira now because Naira is even becoming a useless
it's not juicy
commodity
anymore.
now. It's a dollar and pounds. So if we do that and later we complain of lack of good governance, we shouldn't be blaming any leader. We should be blaming ourselves. Because today, look at our delegates in all the primaries of major political parties. What are they doing? They are buying the base of automobiles. They are buying houses. They are doing all the great things in this kind of economy when most Nigerians are finding it difficult, to even eat. So people now know that the most lucrative thing now to do is be a delegate of a political party. Wait till the time will come and you are going to reap bounteously.
Well, of course, it's a sad reality. But BK, let's look at other issues that has beclouded our electoral process. Beyond vote buying, thuggery, ballot box snatching has also been one of the factors that have waylaid our electoral process. We've practiced democracy close to 24 years now. We've had tons and tons of election, both the off-season and the general elections. But it appears that these issues are recurring and they get worse by the day. How do we get it, and what role are security agencies also playing? You made a reference to a situation where even a law enforcement officer is the one sharing out the money.
Yes.
How are the law enforcement agencies also aiding these ugly realities that we have had to contend with?
Of course, law enforcement agents connive with politicians. You ask yourself, every time we hear that thousands and thousands of policemen will be sent to provide security, especially during off-season elections. Apart from the police, we will send naval officers, we will send Air Force men, we will send civil defense, we will send all
road
security.
safety.
Yes, road safety too.
Army,
Yes,
everybody.
everybody, Nigerian army. Yet, these political thugs still get away with ballot box snatching on election day. There's hardly any election that we can conduct where you won't hear stories of ballot box snatching and general vote rigging. It is impossible to get away with ballot box snatching without the connivance of security agents, because sometimes they just look away. It depends on who is committing the offense. Sometimes they just look away. So if we really want to deepen our democracy, make our elections more and more credible, all of these electoral vices have to be removed from our political culture. We can't have a situation in which countries that Nigeria provided brotherly care for, the frontline nations of Southern Africa, today they are conducting free, fair, and credible elections. Nigeria, a country that provided not just shelter for some of their leaders, but even financed the freedom struggle in those countries. Today, we can't do election without the possibility of vote rigging. It says a lot about how far we have gone. And when people keep saying, oh, America didn't just get there in one day, Rome was not built in a day. Look, how long are we going to build our own Rome? How long is it going to take us to build our own Rome? After all these years, after almost 30 years, we should be able to conduct free, fair, and credible elections. Thuggery will always happen in elections because even the INEC rule book says where election is characterized by violence, they should cancel the ballots recorded in those places will be cancelled. Political opponents now use that to make life difficult for their rivals. They go to deliberately cause trouble in those places, knowing that the ballots will be cancelled. You go to the stronghold of your opponent and deliberately cause problems there. I remember in 2015, in Southern Kaduna, so many ballots were wasted. So many ballots were wasted because votes were not returned from a lot of polling centers where violence took place. I mean, there's no reason for our elections to be characterized by violence. It is because some people made up their minds to instigate violence so that it will be difficult for the opponent to win. Because if people target your stronghold and make life unbearable for voters in your stronghold, how are you going to win? They know that the law says that, oh, ballots should not be recorded from those places. So these things are deliberately contrived as part of the rigging module of some of our politicians. Politicians forge INEC's forms. INEC has increasingly been putting a lot of security features on their forms. The form EC8A, on which results are entered. Politicians will go and forge it. Go to collation centers, bribe electoral officers, and substitute the real result with the one that they sat down in their houses and filled. So that's why a lot of people felt, look, this idea of having electronic transmission of results is desirable because you and I voted at the same polling center. The result is snapped and then transmitted electronically. That way, the fear of INEC staff being hijacked on the way to the collation, the local government or state collation center, and have their results substituted will not happen. Everybody will have it. You saw we used it in Ondo, we used it in Edo, and it worked fine. The bulk of the rigging these days, the bulk of the rigging takes place between polling centers and collation centers.
After the vote.
After the vote. You and I will have voted, we'll be happy, we'll go home, we'll think that we have the result. When they're announcing the result, it will be straight to you that, is it the same election that... So this is the thing. As INEC is perfecting or bringing innovations to make our elections more credible, some undesirable elements are also devising means. For example, if we had the electronic accreditation of voters through the card reader, I can tell you that from 2015 when it was introduced, the rate of the use of the card reader has been going steadily down. In 2015, it was around 56%. We had in 2019, it came down to about 20%.
I think 19%.
19, I think, yes, now I'm not so sure. And the off-season elections that we had in December 2020, they were also in the same range, around 20%, from 55, 56
in 2015.
In 2015. And the INEC rule book says where they fail to use the card reader, cancel election. But even INEC staff themselves, the so-called RECs at INEC, they are unable to fully implement what the INEC rulebook says for reasons best known to them. They bring lecturers, as we saw in Akwa Ibom. So those lecturers as bent as an hockey stick. So if we bring lecturers and we can't even be sure that those lecturers will not compromise the process, because how can you be a returning officer and you are the one rigging the election for a political party?
All right, BKO, you've highlighted all the anti-democratic issues that has bedeviled, electoral process over the years. But let's look at it, Adekunle Yusuf. We've talked about the political actors, their role in all of this. We've mentioned how the security agencies also compromised. But let's come to we the people. What role are the people also playing in circumventing the process? Where they accept the bread, where they sell their vote to highest bidder, what are the people doing, and how can we encourage citizens to play their role effectively in improving our electoral system?
I'm sorry to say, the people are powerless in all this scenario.
How can they be powerless?
How much was a loaf of bread 7, 8 years ago? How much is it now? Just one egg, how much was it 5 years ago? How much is it now? You can go on and on basic items that the ordinary folks need to live their lives. So is it not the same, the ruling class, the political elite that impoverished the voting populace, make them weak, so that at the end of the day, during election cycle, they will kowtow to the political landlords? How many people are able to eat 3 times a day in Nigeria today? The level of poverty in Nigeria is ungodly. And I don't think there's anybody in the political space who should be able to rationalize it. We need to be honest. So now, for somebody who has not eaten or fed his family for a day or 2 or 3, and you now dago dollar, as our big politicians now do, or crisp naira notes. We are human beings. Temptations, how many of us can resist temptations? When faced with hunger, extreme one, hopelessness, despondency, that fill the atmosphere now. So it's very difficult. I'm not trying to justify why Nigerian masses do this, but we just have to be realistic. Oh, you can't remember the last time you have new clothes on yourself, and one miserable but rich politician is giving you what can last you and your entire family, and you want to say no, we don't want to take the cloth. Or you have not eaten since then, bags of semo, as they love to do, rice or beans and other things. We need to be honest. We can blame the masses for accepting to sell their conscience, but it takes to thank God those who offer something are the ones we should concentrate on, because they come to public office, many of them, by buying their way, bribing their way. When they get there, they loot the treasury, and they use that to subjugate the masses. They know that with this heavy war chest, can browbeat anyone, muzzle their way through. So now, have we recorded gains in our electoral process? I would say no. Because what we produce now, or what we'll be producing now, is that the trophy does not go to anyone but the highest bidder. Whether that highest bidder is a drug baron, is an armed robber, a treasury looter, all sort of, shady characters that shouldn't have a voice in a decent democratic environment. That's what is happening in Nigeria. Let the National Assembly enact all the laws that anyone can enact, and let the president assent. We have made no progress if this matter is not solved. Because at the end of the day, all I know or what we should do is have cash, big cash, naira, dollar, pounds, enter into the political, cheat the system through primaries, then I emerge. That's the first stage. The second stage, face the masses as a Muslim man with cash, bribe them, win election. At the end of the day, I will recoup my investment. So that's what our space has become, is a space where the highest bidders rule. It's not good. I don't know the best way to go about it, because in any society where these things start, I don't know of any society where we have this kind of thing at this magnitude. And I'm afraid.
It's really.
Whose votes are bought the way they are bought in Nigeria. I can't think of. Sometimes when we talk about Senate claims and all that, some people want to kill themselves about that. If things are happening in your country that you do not like to see, you have every right to complain about it. That's how to build a decent society. You can't build a decent society when you see things that are wrong and simply behave that those things are not happening because you don't want to be seen as critical of your country. Can anyone, for example, say that he's happy about the rapid inflation that we are facing in our country now? Everything is expensive. People can't even the local rice that we've encouraged people to grow. People can't buy it.
Okay,
BK, so the people who are hungry, how do you tell them not to take money
not to sell their
from politicians? I mean, whatever. Look, I once saw in Kano, and I'm not exaggerating, on election day in Kano, around the Club Road, that individual put leaves on his head. You know what that means? I'm for sale.
Okay.